Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Andre Segovia Show. On today's episode of the program, part 2 of a conversation I had with my buddy Sam Tavs. Part 1 debuted to the masses. Part 2 was exclusive to locals, so I'm finally making it available for all to hear. We discussed the negative health effects that too much social media has on our lives. Now, if you're curious to see what I do on locals, I suggest you follow the links in the description down below, or just go to the show notes of company's episode at www.theandresegovia.com. Find links to go to my locals community, and you're welcome to sign up. It's free, and be entertained. Anyway, without further ado, here's my conversation with my buddy, Sam Tavs.
This is the Andre Segovia Show.
Now, for those of you that are still watching, it's because we're not on YouTube anymore. We can be sure that this stream will not be taken down. And here's where we're segueing to big tech. We were not planning on doing an entire hour talking about Apple, but it is a fascinating study of how much convenience is brought when a company does control the economies of scale and their product, because technically they build the software and the hardware around it, whereas others build the hardware and try to put a software on it, and it doesn't always work that way. But that's because they've been able to take care of all they've been able to take care of. And there's that dark side to these big tech companies, because Apple is not without fault in all this. When I decided to upgrade to the iPhone 12, it's because I made a decision, because BlackBerry was basically dead. I made an announcement like rest in peace BlackBerry last year. And then towards the end of the year, there was an announcement that there was a licensing agreement between BlackBerry Limited and this new upstart company called Onward Mobility, and a third company called Hi-Fi, whatever the heck it's called, to be able to produce, manufacture a flagship BlackBerry for 2021. So then I covered it. I was like, so there is hope. But then when I saw nothing get off the ground in the next several months leading to 2021, it's the most important device that we need right now. Privacy, that's what BlackBerry is. But nothing was happening. That's when I knew it's not going to happen. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to bite the bullet. I will upgrade to an iPhone, because at the time I had ditched the iPhone, and I was using my Galaxy Note 10 as my primary device, and my secondary device was the folding Surface Duo. So those were the two I was carrying. But I'm like, I feel like I need the iPhone again as a communicator and privacy, so I'm not all in on Android.
Right.
And then Apple stabs everybody in the back with all these privacy infringements and things. Like, why? What?
Scanning your iMessages in the with the excuse that is to protect children's as well as other things. And there's a fine line on those things. I think the intention might be good, but at the end of the day, we're humans. And if there's one thing that big tech has done very, very well to get us to where we are today, is into presenting us with these apples or wonderful, ideas and features, in making us believe that is for our own benefits, that it's in the long run, it's just going to help us. It's going to make things more convenient, and just make everything better. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And Apple have always been very, very tight when it comes to privacy. It is one of the many reasons, obviously, they have been able to keep such a huge market, not only shareholders, but also, users, among other things. And seeing what just transpired this year with that particular feature, among other things, was quite scary. It was one of the reasons why I just end up using iMessages for very minute things on a daily basis. And then I just completely moved pretty much my entire family and a few close friends into Signal. And sometimes I use Telegram for, a few news groups that I'm a part of. because at least they stayed in their policy agreement that they don't sell your data and they don't do any of these crazy things, and that everything is encrypted. And so Apple used to do that. I know that if they would get a request from the US government to gain access to someone iPhone's messages as well as other communication features, they'll have to get not a subpoena, but they have to get a government case assigned to that in order to gain access. So much so that the other day, my sister-in-law that is in California, her grandmother, my wife's grandmother, passed away this year, and she had a few iPads. And my youngest daughter, Ella, she's about to turn 4 years old. She's been dying to not get a device for herself, but to play this game called Active Game, not sponsor. I'm not suggesting it or anything. It's just that at least it keeps my kids active, moving, as opposed to just looking at a screen, inactive. Anyways, so she wanted to donate one of those iPads, and my sister-in-law, she used an email address from a domain name called mailed.com. Again, not sponsor. I'm not recommending it. But it looks like if you're inactive for I don't know how many years or what have you, they just delete everything. So you don't have access to that email account. And that email account was the Apple ID. And we have been trying to get this iPad disassociated with that Apple ID, wiped it out, and then put it under mine. So then I can assign it to my kid with all the restrictions and everything that I put on these devices. I filter my entire network through my wireless system. They don't have access practically to anything. And their time a day is actually monitored as well. And they don't have more than 30 minutes or so. But anyway, we end up calling Apple and having Apple support. And when she asked them, can I just have you wiped it from your end because we don't have access to these email, we don't have access at all, they were like, well, for that, I'm going to need a police report, or I forgot the term itself that she used, but it is something that you need to ask the government to provide in order to Apple gain access to it. And it was just crazy that was the case. But at the same time, I was okay with it because anybody can call and say, yeah, this is my iPad and what have you, and provide, even though we provided information that it was hers, she actually had the receipt of when she purchased it. And at the end of the whole conversation, the tech person just told us, you just need to wait for up to 30 days and see if we'll be able to come up with something to resolve, your inconvenience right now. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And how they perceive these things like that. But that's just Apple. Obviously, we know Google as well as every other social media platform out there, including Facebook, which is the social media platform. Well, let me rephrase that. Not Facebook, it's Meta nowadays. That's the parent company, apparently. It's the social media platform that I dislike the most, and that's to be polite. I have worse things to say about it, but I do not liked it. I signed up with Facebook. I remember back, my goodness, 14, 12 years or what have you, when it started it. And the premise of Facebook, like every other big tech services that they provide, is always, number one, that is free. Number two, that is convenient to you. We're going to be connecting you with your best friend, with your families, with your classmates, and you're going to have a place where you could exchange ideas and, what have you. You can make groups and all those things. And then it turns into this data hoarding company, just as worst, if not more, than Google.
Oh, it is worse than Google.
Yeah. And when you hear people just say, well, but I just, that's where I got everybody. That's, I have everything there and things like that. And it's just sad because we're giving up our freedom. It truly is to just get that dopamine level of acceptance from our friends and other peoples and social media. And I get it. We're humans. We're looking for attention. That's why we do video. That's why we do, podcasts, because we want other people to notice us. However, I think that there's better ways to approach those things, as opposed to selling our souls. And that's what Facebook is doing with all these AIs and algorithm. They're literally have a individual profile from each of us from day one that we started providing data that they have been aggregating throughout all these years about us, so much so that they can literally predict our movement. They can predict whether or not you're going to like a new company that came along that you have no clue whatsoever, a products that you were literally just looking at 10 seconds ago on your browser, and all of a sudden you go to Facebook, and just to hypothetically speaking, give an example, here's this underwear company showing up on your feed on Facebook, and you're like, wait a minute, I was just looking at that 10 seconds ago. How in the world is this showing up on my feed? I did not search for this. And that's how strong these algorithms are, these AI that they have running all these big tech companies. And unfortunately, there isn't enough attention to that. I know Congress like to do all these meetings and events and bring CEOs to Congress and talk to them and questioning them, is this good or not, and what have you. And at the end of the day, they're all lobbyists. They're lobbying, all these different politicians, and we just don't get to anything. And as much as we talked about it, the overwhelming majority of people are so connected into this metaverse lifestyle that we have that we cannot see ourselves living without it nowadays. And on my most recent podcast that I haven't posted yet, I talked about maybe the reasons behind you need to continue to use those services. Perhaps you relied on that, your business relied on that, or you work for a company and you're managing the social media platform. I get those things, but I guarantee you that 95% of the billions of people that use all these companies, specifically Facebook, they just do it, because they have this quote unquote connection with their relatives, their friends, and so on. It comes without hesitation for you to pick up the phone and immediately just, launch that app. And one of the things that I just wanted to prove myself this year was the ability to take a break from all this craziness, especially with all the political debates and disagreement that we're facing on a regular basis, with all the censorship for, one side of the spectrum over the other. Yeah. And so you literally have to, if you want to have a healthier approach to life, and you want to give your brain the necessary nutrients offline, off social media, you need to unplug once in a while. You need to take a break. I don't care how long you make it happen. I know that when Apple introduced the feature screen time for us to monitor how much time we were spending on, all these different platforms for our own health, I guarantee you the overwhelming majority of people probably didn't even look at that, or maybe they use it and it's like, okay, well, all right. I used to spend close to 5 hours a day on social media, and mostly on IG and Twitter, which are the ones that I use the most. And so it was for me, it was important for me to visualize that, because it helps you see, consciously how much time you give in these companies, quote unquote, that are providing all these free services, when in the end we are the ones creating all these metaverse aggregate data that eventually they make billions out of them and out of us, obviously, by selling our data.
So we are the product.
Exactly. We are the product.
Well, I guess I should ask you how, because we talked about this in the pre-interview. You took time off from social media for 30 days.
Right.
And you said you'd done it before for about a week, and that was attainable, but the 30 days was not it.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. It literally was. And it felt, to me, social media is like an addiction, right? Like, a drug or something like that. I've never done drugs, so I don't know how the withdrawals are, or, what have you. But the initial 5 days, when I decided to do this 30-day social media detox, the first 5 days, I would subconsciously reach out to my phone at any specific time of the day. And I don't know why. I just don't know why. It often happens when, I have to go to the bathroom or things like that, which is perhaps where you're more relaxed, I guess.
Yes.
And I will find myself trying to figure it out subconsciously, my mind telling me, oh, during this time you were, engaging someone on Twitter, or, checking IG, or posting a picture, or, some of those things. And what I decided to do was, I don't know if you have ever heard of the time management called Pomodoro. And what it entails is kind of having in a specific timestamp of your habits, or your how you manage your time during, let's say, an 8-hour schedule of your day. And I use this app called Be Focused app, not sponsored. I just kind of, liked it and kept it. But what I enjoyed doing was that I was able to create multiple profiles during the day, depending on the task that I would do on a daily basis, and have this app then run in the background on my Mac. And when I needed to do something, I will click on go. I will specify the time I wanted to spend on that particular task or habit. And, when the time would end, it will notify me, and then it will give me a 5 minutes break in between if I wanted to continue it or not. And I felt that it was very neat. The time that I would spend on social media, I replaced that with reading books. I'm not a big reader. Unfortunately, my kids, thank goodness, are really good at that. And so I personally decided that I was going to read more. I'm more of a digital reader than, physical book readers. And so I decided to purchase a few books that were recommended. And one of those books that I enjoy thoroughly was The Atomic Habits. And I recommend that books to anyone that wants to improve their daily habits and tasks and exercise. I mean, it's great. It makes you think differently about your time that you spend on any sort of habits and tasks, and it gives you a very clear example. And let me tell you, when I started reading it, again, I was struggling at the beginning with it, because I've gotten so used to being distracted, especially when I'm in from either my iPad or the computer or my phone. And it was
Ranger Candy Coffee Company is a veteran-owned, handcrafted premium coffee roaster located in Shoehorn Bend, Arkansas. They offer a variety of single origin and flavored coffee. Their coffee is roasted and packaged by husband and wife duo Larry and Sierra Littlefoot. Ranger Candy Coffee Company has also partnered with Disabled American Veterans, a 501c4 nonprofit that supports combat veterans in their post-war readjustment process. They donate a portion of their profits to them as a way to give back. So when you shop at Ranger Candy Coffee Company, know that you are supporting not only a veteran-owned small business, you are also supporting an outstanding veterans nonprofit. Check out Ranger Candy Coffee Company's selection of special blends, K-Cup, single origin, and flavored coffee at rangercoffeecandycompany.com. Use promo code Andres Segovia and get free shipping on your order. So go to rangercandycoffeecompany.com, choose your blend, size, and brew, and taste America in every sip.
Phenomenal with the combination of having an app that can kind of tap you in the back and tell you, hey, this is the time for you to do this. I got to enjoy it. So I finished reading that book within 2 weeks. And then I jump into another book that I just started reading from Seth Godin, I think it is. It is 0 to 1. And it is, no, I'm sorry, by Peter Thiel. And I just started that book during that process that I was doing these social media detox. And man, I'm telling you, you begin to develop this focus when you have that ability, and your brain will thank you later. The other thing that I encourage people as well is to balance your life, balance your social media life and your offline life. Go out for at least 10 minutes. Go for a walk. You don't have to go running. I love running. Unfortunately, after that injury I have this year and then my surgery 2 months ago, I have not been able to run for the past 3.5 months or so. Mm-hmm. And I hated it because running is one of my favorite things to do. But if you're able to disconnect from social media and take a break, go for a 20 minutes walk, go to the gym if that's what you enjoy, and just make it a habit that provides rewards. Make it that you literally write down that you say, after I work out, I'm going to get, X. And so once you create a habit like that, where there's something that maybe you're not accustomed to do regularly, which is working out, but then there is a reward after that, it kind of encourages you to do it more often. If you don't have that, strong will to do things like that, then I will suggest to do it, because I think it's so beneficial. And throughout those 30 days, I just spend more time with my kids. Like I said, I have 4 kids. They are in a hybrid schooling system where they just go three days a week to this experimental school here in Taiwan, where everything is in Chinese. And then when they come home in the afternoon, then they obviously do their homework, but we also have a lot of extracurricular schools support, whether it's reading groups. We have coding lessons for our oldest kids. We have extracurricular activities such as gymnastic, not Kung Fu, but Taekwondo. We have sports for my little boy. I have 3 girls and a boy, so it's imperative that my boy gets a little of a, boy time for him to do his thing. And they have dance class. So, we try to keep it in a way that they are busy and engaged in those sort of things. And so I love the fact to be able to do that. And it's not that I wasn't spending more time with them before, prior to going into this 30 days detox from social media. It's just that now I'm able to prioritize better all those different things. And I literally spend now maybe an hour across all these different social media. I don't have that crave anymore after these 30 days because I've been able to incorporate all the things outside of what I used to do in social media. And obviously, like I stated at the beginning of when we started talking about this, I don't rely on social media for any sort of business. I don't have necessarily an actual business, and I hate using these words that I retired about 5-6 years ago. I'm not retired. I still do a bunch of different things, a lot of investment, especially in the blockchain cryptocurrency space. But I spend more time now prioritizing my kids whenever they need anything. And so Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Thursday are field trip days for my kids. And so, the family will go somewhere around Taiwan that they can learn something about, this beautiful island of Taiwan. And so they're half Taiwanese, half American, or half Dominican, which is my upbringing. And it's great to be able to give them that ability. I think it's so important for us as parents to be more accessible to our family.
Yeah, it definitely is important. In fact, I was pulling this up while you were talking because I did this podcast for my Off the Record series, which is something that I do exclusively on my website, but I can talk about it here. Back on March 19, 2020, called Social Media Distancing, Save Your Sanity. And then in addition to that, the Hodge twins shared socialism distancing.
Cool.
The reason I put that stuff up is because I make the case like, with the pandemic, all of a sudden, Facebook is cool again. And as soon as people got on Facebook, they were reminded why they hated it and left in the first place.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Last year, truly, Facebook turned into Twitter. And the reason that's a big deal is because Twitter is just a cesspool of just leftist ideology living in an alternate reality. And I don't even call it reality. It's just a fever dream of theirs that will never come to pass.
Which is why the metaverse turns, because that's precisely where they're going. And by the way, if you keep hearing that term, metaverse and things like that, and you want to know more about it, just watch the movie Ready Player One. And sometimes friends ask me, what is this metaverse? And I just tell them to watch that movie because I think it is the foundation for what's to come, where our children's will be living in an environment similar to that. So just watch the movie.
Pretty much. And I think even Minority Report to some extent did it that way. Cyber parlors where you're living in a different life, or even Total Recall back in 1991. Yeah. So it's a lot of this stuff where you're living a life that isn't real because you're experiencing it through an avatar.
Well, do you remember the movie Gamers?
Is that the one with Gerard Butler?
Yes.
I didn't see the movie, but I know of it. It's like an action romp.
Exactly, but it's identical. Is similar to what is being perceived as Web 3.0, which is metaverse. So obviously, I don't recommend that for children's under 13. It's more of a adult type of film.
Yeah, that one definitely is.
Not Ready Player One. Ready Player One is great. I actually bought the book for my children and know that, and they have read it. So
and what you were saying, just sharing your experience with the whole like detoxing from tech, social media and all that. I deleted my Facebook this year. I left on my own terms, and I warned my family like, hey, I'm leaving. And then those people that were jumping off WhatsApp, I'm like, I was way ahead of you years ago, because as soon as Facebook bought them, I'm like, heck no, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Only one the one that I kept was Instagram. I had Instagram before Facebook bought them out. And Instagram, I opened it as a business front. So I'm like, well, I'm still using it as business, but eventually I did try to make it more personable. So I had to go in there and manually take down stuff that were family. It's not enough to just archive them because they're still there. So I had to go in there and delete them. But it's not to say they're not on some Facebook server somewhere. But
Yeah,
ultimately, it's like
exactly.
I don't need them out to be in the public. And I tell people, I'm on some of these big tech platforms until I'm no longer welcome there. In other words, they boot me
Right,
out. So whatever. But I made
right.
myself like uncancelable this year by being across multiple different platforms. I'm like on 7 video platforms total. I'm
Wow.
across like 6 social media platforms, not counting counting Instagram. That's the big one. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not coming back to Facebook. I do have um, a, a, a private Twitter. I don't follow. I don't have any followers, but I
Mhm.
follow local city accounts because the only way I can get those updates from the city. But even that, I'm kind of leaning off it. It's like just trying to find another way to get that information. But one of the things has been to I sometimes spread my time out through some of these social media platforms because that's the only way to not use Twitter. But it
Right,
doesn't mean these places make it any better either,
right,
because there's some
exactly.
places where there's the other unsavory folk, and it just becomes a place that you don't want that kind of engagement. But it's just kind of tying all of these conversations that we had in since the beginning, how we
Yeah.
talked about Apple and the convenience and everything that came across from it. There is one thing though that Apple did, and
Mhm.
that is condition its users
Yep.
to be stuck on it and not be able to leave their walled garden.
Mhm.
Because like you talk about screen time. Well, let's talk about iOS itself. iOS, you cannot personalize it unless you jailbreak it. And if
Mhm.
you want to change the iconography, you want to change the layout, and all this, you can't do that. It's like, well, why can't I change it to what I want? It's for your own good. That's Apple
Right.
telling you what to do with the phone that
Yep.
you bought. But it's like, no, it's what we want you to want. And every time you update to the latest operating system, we throttle the phone so it gets a little slower so we can extend the battery life of it. It's like, but I don't want to extend the battery life. I want to get the performance out of it. No, it's for your own good. It's a conditioning that they've been doing. It's like, oh, okay, you know better than I do. Even though I'm the one using the phone. And
They
I know you're
pay hefty
monitoring
for that.
everything now. Yeah,
They
so
pay
that's
very hefty for that, so
and that's just it, that they condition. Same thing with social media, where it was like,
Mhm.
well, I had MySpace, I had Friendster or whatever, and then ultimately Facebook is another MySpace, and it started becoming more and more involved in our lives
And
with groups,
TikTok as well
calendars,
nowadays.
events. Yeah, TikTok, I don't
Horrible,
even touch it. I don't touch them
horrible.
with a 10-foot pole. But
Yeah.
the to the extension thereof is that we started living with this thing about social validation.
Mhm.
Everybody heralded as the iPhone as like, oh, that's like the thing to get. And you had an Android. It's like, well, I have an Android. I don't have an
It's
iPhone
a
because I can't
status
afford it.
symbols as well. That's how a lot of people sees it too. It's
And
just sad.
that's why they ended up living their lives like, oh, how many likes am I going to get? How many
Right.
shares am I going to get? How many
Yep.
followers do I have? It's like, yeah, I was caught up with that, just like anybody else was. But then I snapped out
Yeah.
of it. It's like, no, wait a minute. I don't need validation because I know who I am and what I want to do. So
Right.
that's one of the big things about technology and big tech as a whole. This whole thing is psychological conditioning
Right.
to make us dependent on these things,
Mhm.
and breaking away is sometimes often very difficult.
Yep.
I had to go to rural parts of Wyoming because only Verizon works, but I had to find a place in um, where only 2,000 people live in the town to finally find a place where there was no cell phone service.
Yeah.
And that's like my go-to escapism. I'm going to get out of here and go see God's creation. And that's the only way to
Yep.
truly disconnect and detox because there's so much more out there. And like I have a book published that's only available in print. I don't want anybody buying the Kindle version. It's like, nope,
Cool.
pick up a book, people. And I shared I have to pull it up here. This one's from Instagram, speaking of big tech.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really good one because some people ask me, is that the thing from is that the library from the Beauty and the Beast thing? No, not this one, but it's in I think it's Portugal, no, Brazil. I don't know. You can see there's a lot of
Yeah, I
legend.
can
Right
see
there
it.
we go. That's a library, just a section of it. Like holy, it's like a royal library in Brazil.
Mm.
It's like, dude, that's what I wish to have. I want to. All my books are in the garage right now because I don't have space to put them in. But
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to just being able to put them all away. But Yeah, so it's great that you shared your experience about being able to detox, and people should take some notes of that so they lose their habit. And as we wind it down here, because we both I'm sure have to go, but I have to ask you that question, because you moved away from, you wanted to detox with social media because of just how toxic it was, but it's becoming toxic because of the stupid debates that are happening over here.
Yeah.
How does the United States look to an American that's living across the ocean? Is like, do you see the entire country up in flames, falling, sinking to the ocean, or how do you see it?
Here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of California politics. Okay. I I enjoy California. I grew up in New York. I know the states that I'm not fond of, and I wanted to give my kids a different experience than what I grew up. I mean, every parent, that's what they want. They want to make their children's lives better, or at least I hope that's the case. And so the ability that we have, that we were blessed back then, even though I was let go from my job in 2013, when my boy was born, actually, he was like 2 months old when I was let go from my job. And here's the irony of that, just so that I can touch briefly on that. The reason why I was let go was because my counterpart that I have from Apple, the engineer that I used to work very close with, he was a Christian, and we wanted to spend more time together, and he wanted me to come to work directly for Apple. And an opportunity came up. I went through the interview, but it wasn't what I really, really wanted. I was so comfortable in the company I was making, great money, 6 figures income, and I was very comfortable. And one of the person that was in that meeting, one of the 7 people that I was interviewing that day, was a very close friend that played golf with the owner of the company I was working for at the time. And so that information obviously went on to the ears of the owner of the company, which we were very, very close. And that was it. They, according to them, they felt betrayed. In reality, I was very honest at that time. I told them, look, I will do whatever it takes to improve my life and the well-being of my family, even if it means, even if it means switching company and going to work, somewhere else. But anyways, going back to what you were saying, and so we were blessed with that ability. We became financially independent 2 years after that.
Nice.
And when we realized that we didn't need to work for anyone, that we had that opportunity, then we just started traveling, and we would go for 6 months to various different countries. And it was great. We were putting our kids in co-ops classes throughout all these different countries, and they were learning different cultures. They were learning different experience, and it was just great. And then we decided to land in Taiwan. My wife's family still lives here, and I loved Taiwan. I don't know how else to say it. I just, it is an incredible country. It is a beautiful island. If there's anything negative that I can think about, it's just the driving. Okay. Do not drive here. That is it.
Especially on a scooter.
Yes. Other than that, it is an amazing country. And so leaving with the fear, especially in the past 2 years or so, living with the fear that a dictatorship such as China is breathing on Taiwan's neck, even more in the past 2 years, has put a lot of people in a very difficult state of mind, especially foreigners, especially expats that lived here in Taiwan. I have a few good friends, even in the community where I live, that they're foreigners, some from the States, others from Europe. And we're constantly talking about this. Now, what's fascinating is that a few weeks back, I don't know if you've ever heard of disclosed.tv.
Yeah,
Okay,
I follow them.
I follow them on Telegram, and there was a poll that was taken, and here's the question: where will we see war first? Number one, Ukraine. Number two, Iran. Number three, Taiwan. Number four, North Korea. And number five, civil war, meaning civil war in the United States.
Yes, it's
31% said Ukraine, 7% said Iran, 20% said Taiwan, 1% said North Korea, and 41% says civil war in the United States. So that pretty much tells you everything there is to know when it comes to, what's happening. The perception from us as expat living in Taiwan. I don't speak Chinese, so I know the local, the people from here. My wife listened to the news all the time, and it's just constantly over the news. China just violated the airspace of Taiwan. Is almost happening on a daily basis, and the constant pressure continue. And the only thing that I think is preventing them from understand China is within about an hour or so away from Taiwan. It's like it's this far distant, country. It's right there.
Yeah.
And I would say that the only reason that Taiwan has been taken, not the only reason, but one of the primary reasons is because of the obviously influence that the United States have here. Just like Taiwan has a lot of influence here, Japan and Korea, that is South Korea, and Australia as well. It's a ally of Taiwan. And I would say one of the primary reasons for that is because of TSMC. And for those of you that are not familiar, TSMC is one of the largest chip manufacturer in the world. And so had there not be a TSMC here in Taiwan, I can tell you with certainty that Taiwan would have been taken over, years ago. So a lot of people live in constant fear, so much so that my British friend, James, he just told me, he sent me a message the other day when we were just talking about our family and how things were, word and all that. And he was just telling me that I have a friend that's been strongly encouraging me to have time to leave Taiwan as soon as possible, as he feels Chinese attack is imminent. He says that I need to prepare a go bug out bags for my whole family if I stay. And so he was asking me, how am I handling those things? And obviously from a, Christian perspective, it is in God's hands ultimately, but us as human beings, we can obviously prepare for that as well. And, if it comes down to that, there's plausible scenarios that we could just, they'll give us, I don't know, 30 days for anybody that wants to leave the island to leave or what have you. But there's no way I would definitely stay in Taiwan if China does what they pull off on Hong Kong a while back. There's just no way. The freedom that you have here in Taiwan, I don't know how to explain it for people in the States. It's just remarkable. The fact that here in Taiwan, just with this ridiculous COVID pandemic that we're still living through, granted, there were some lockdowns, but it wasn't as extreme as we have seen in the United States, specifically and throughout Western nations. And the one thing that I noticed was that Taiwan's focused a lot on feeding their population with information about whatever it might be when it comes to a virus. And they were just, oh my goodness, I remember getting those emergency texts on my phone and things like that about, social distancing. And this is, where we are right now. They're not perfect. They have made a few mistakes along the way, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
But Taiwan was one of the very first nations that noticed what was happening in China before a lot of other countries. And because of the politics of the WHO and the influence that China has in that institution, Taiwan was not allowed to warn a lot of other countries. As of today, Taiwan is not allowed to speak in the World Health Organization community. And so they have to speak through proxies and get information secondhand, perhaps from the US or some other nation, for the mere reason that China does not want Taiwan to be recognized as an independent nation. And that's just sad. 25 plus million human beings living cohesively with all types of religion freedoms and the ability to go about your business, live your life. Something that is not that I'm a big fan of, but I respect other people. Taiwan is one of the nations that, legalized same-sex marriage a while back. And at first I was a bit kind of like, I don't know if I want my kids to be involved in some sort of teaching about any of those things, because I'm the parent. I'm the one responsible to speak to them about those things. But in the end, that did not affect schools or any of those things. People here are more respectful of that. They don't put them in your face. They don't try to inject politics on everything like we do in America. And, again, just the fact that even during pandemic, you can literally just walk and go anywhere you want. During the pandemic, my kids were going to the beach because we live about 10 minutes from the beach. They were going to the beach almost every other day. And just the fact that you're able to do that, as opposed to what most of these nations have done, specifically the United States, is just insane. And the biggest mistake that we did at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020 was when my wife was panicking because she didn't think Taiwan was prepared for the pandemic and all those sorts of things. So we packed up, left Taiwan, went back to California, thinking that, well, the United States is better prepared. And I disagree. But as we all know, as husbands, at some point we need to kind of, give in and kind of reassess your life situation. I went with it, and we rented a place in Orange County, and it was, even though it was Orange County wasn't 100% lockdown, when we would go visit our families and friends, for instance, in the Arcadia, Monrovia area, it was just crazy. It was just absolutely insane. And then when we started doing all the lines outside, for instance, we love Trader Joe's. You have to go into these crazy lines and all that, reminiscence of the Great Depression and all this thing. It was just absolutely bananas. And sure enough, we just lasted for almost like 3 or 4 months because I couldn't take it. I said, you know what? There's no way I'm staying here in the States, knowing that, number one, Taiwan is, I think it is much more better prepared for pandemics like this. And I just love the freedom. And that's exactly what we did. We packed up everything, and we, in the middle of the pandemic, we just grabbed our kid and our stuff and just came back here.
Yeah, because Taiwan's like, again? Because this is like, what
exactly.
It went from SARS to swine flu to this one. It's like, oh, here we go again. So like, it's all like in a span of 2 decades, 3 of these things. So yeah, they knew what they were doing. That's why they were like the last ones to experience. Like, oh, you guys are finally going through what we did last year. It's like Taiwan's finally hitting it, but they hit the number on the head. But still, the hysteria was always going to be something because of it's a human condition, and. Right. that's ultimately what drives it. And over here in the United States, we let stupid rule. So yielding over to that ideology of stupid, that's why we're in this never-ending cycle of, hey, you go get the jab. Why don't you have your jab? Yeah. No, but my jab won't work unless you take your jab. It's like, but we still got to mask up.
Exactly.
So if the masks work, why do we need the jab?
And you're still spreading the virus too.
Yeah, no, it's because we need it. And today Pfizer says, 3 of our jabs work against Omicron.
Oh my goodness.
So we don't end it. And Fauci, the science here in the United States, he said, yeah, we're going to redefine the meaning of fully vaccinated. Again, it's like, and that's why I put on Instagram. It's like, yeah, and can we, while you're at it, can we return back to the actual definition of vaccine? Because you guys keep changing it for political reasons. It's like, we have entered that realm of stupid, and a lot more people have waken up to that, and some are turning away from social media. Finally, they're getting red pilled. Some of them are realizing, it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe the 2020 election wasn't the freest, most safest election ever. Yep. Maybe some shenanigans did go down, and some of us that we're being told, like, wait, we're being told that yes, it is, but when it was no, like Kyle Rittenhouse didn't shoot three black people at a BLM riot in Kenosha, Wisconsin. No, they were all white, and they were criminals, and of the worst kind. So you can't make this stuff up, as people are finally waking up and realizing, you know what? Why isn't the media talking about the Epstein trial, the Ghislaine Maxwell? What about the pictures that are released today?
Or the Juicy Smollett case. That's how I call it.
Yeah. And BLM just put out a statement just a few hours ago with respects to that. They're saying that no, that we don't believe the police. Juicy Smollett was actually he's the victim here, and we stand 100% behind him. I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty much what they said. Like, dude, do you not realize that social media is not real life? That is not the way it works. And they're trying to push a narrative that's pushing us closer and closer to civil war, separating us by race and putting in this race war, because they're telling us that white supremacy is the number one thing. It's like, no, you're begetting more racism by saying there's racism. And because you can't find it, you make it up. Like Juicy Smollett did, or Juicy Smollett, as Dave Chappelle said it, right? It's like justice for Juicy. But yeah, it's been crazy, dude. Sam, thanks so much. Thank you. This might be a two-parter, man, because we went long in this other segment too. But I do got to wrap here. No, man, it's good stuff, and we haven't connected in a while like this too. So. And I totally agree with you, because I have my other side of the family through my wife. Almost all of them are in Taiwan, and I said it to my brother-in-law many times. It's like, dude, bro, when you buy your house, make sure you have enough room for your parents. It's like, why? Right. Because you're not paying attention to what's happening on their backyard. It could happen at any time. The two most dangerous straits in the world, and one of them is Taiwan. It's insane how it is over there, with China breathing down their neck, and on a whim they need to have a place to land. That's what you want, a plan B. So that's what we'll leave it. Sam, hopefully the next time we talk, we're not locked down to the CCP. So, good having you on the program, man. And we'll be talking. I'll see you around the socials.
All right, bro.
Take it easy. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Andre Segovia Show. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay in the know. If you want a question featured on the program, or you never know, it could be an episode all on its own, you can message me at any of the social media links available at my website, www.theandresegovia.com. Also available there are all the directories where you can find my show. Remember to also follow me on YouTube and Instagram, where other exclusive content resides. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the program. I'll see you on the next one.